Hello and welcome to the Bee Formless Flow Driven CEO podcast. I am welcoming from Gloucester, Massachusetts, right near Boston. Hopefully, got that right. Ed Bordeaux. I think I got Boudreau. Sorry, Ed. I just completely stuffed that up. I had that right pre-show, and then here I go, and I'm like, Anyway, welcome to the show, Ed.
Thanks, B. It's a pleasure to be with you today. So thank you.
Yeah, it's a real pleasure for you. And a little fun fact, where you live in Gloucester, it's a beautiful seaside community from what I understand. And you said it was where The Perfect Storm was filmed.
Yeah,
So that's pretty cool.
The Perfect Storm, but also Coda, which is Children of Deaf Adults. And that was a more recent movie, which was a beautiful
Oh,
movie. So if your listeners haven't seen it, it's very heartfelt.
oh.
So
Yeah, it is a beautiful movie. It's a beautiful film. But let's talk about you, Ed. Let's talk about, I'm kind of really, enthralled we've got some commonalities, but let's start with first things first. You are the founder and CEO of an 8-month-old company, which is Human Ignition, and it's an executive advisory and leadership training firm. The work focuses on upgrading leaders and team and their operating systems for sustained performance. And you're just about to have completed 125 leadership interviews this very week, where you ask them one specific question. I'll let you explain all about that. Before we jump into it, though, you've also been in three startups and two Fortune 5 companies. So you've had quite the experience, quite the journey. How did you then move into or form Human Ignition only 8 months ago? And I've got that many questions around your leadership interviews, like comparing, because with this pod, I think I've done over, like I said to you, about 150 now. And some of the insights are just fascinating and I believe help form where you're taking your business, right?
right, couldn't agree more. I can't wait to dig in
So
with
let's
with you,
tell us
B.
about it. Tell us about it.
Sure. So a couple of different things. I have a passion for leadership. So being a part of three startups, I got to see the first one we sold for 500 million, but I got to see great leadership, scale, growth, success, how to sell a company, and then went from there to a startup that was featured in the book "The World Is Flat: Innovations That Change the World."
Wow.
And incredible idea, right? But it was a complete failure. So I got to see what not to do in a startup, and I was just a little too late. I couldn't turn it around, but phenomenal idea. And then did a startup with a CTO founder of mine, and we were able to bring it up in 6 months. And then did join the two Fortune 5 companies into it, but also UHG. But the common thread is I'm really passionate about leadership. I love it. I study it, and hence the all the interviews I'm doing now to learn more about where we are in leadership and where we can take it.
Yeah, interesting. And what was the one question you asked the leaders when you're interviewing them?
Yeah, I feel like we're in such a different place in leadership now. And the one question is, in the area of leadership, what are the greatest challenges of today?
Yeah, fascinating. What sort of I'm going to jump around a bit, but let's just start here. What sort of insights are coming up for you, if you don't mind me asking and sharing? Like what are you seeing? Because I could not agree more that we're at a really interesting point in time, right, in the world, and leadership is being redefined, reshaped. Mm.
So I think the big common theory is what I call time compression. So leaders are facing incredible noise, right? Whether it be social media or the noise binging from their phone or how people are judging them, in the digital world, so to speak. So, that noise coupled with, we all know emerging technology is coming at us really fast, but the expectations of leaders are becoming greater. And that's why I call it time compression. So you have noise, you have emerging technology coming, at leaders at a super rapid pace. I also heard kind of generational gaps. So communicating to your organization is becoming much more challenging. So those are kind of the initial common themes that I'm
Mm.
seeing.
Mm. I'd love to pick your little brain a little bit and almost like discuss with you around the social media piece because I think that and being judged from a digital perspective because I think as a leader and even from my own experience, I'd love to know if this is from even from yours, that, we've got our own jobs to do as leaders, right? And yet then we've also got the job of having our personal brand identity or our personal brand out there. And then quite often at times, I go onto social channels and I almost like I'm inconsistent, or I say I'm consistent in a non-linear way. I don't say I'm inconsistent. I say I'm consistent because one minute I'll go on and I'll be like, I want to share all these thoughts and ideas, but then the next minute I'm like, oh, but like everyone's saying this, or there's just this mask that you're seeing over social media, and it's like, I just can't. I need to just switch off from it. Like it's all that noise you're talking about. Are you having those sorts of conversations? Because it's really fascinating for me that. I don't know, social media at the moment, like especially LinkedIn channels and things like that, it's almost become a form for me of puffery where it's like, can we just get real again? And if you are real, you're almost judged for being too real. Like, are you kind of digging into those conversations and what are you hearing from leaders? Am I making sense?
You are making sense, and I think kind of a meta trend I would say in it is that when I do talk to leaders, they talk about the noise, they talk about social media, but I would say the enlightened leaders say we need to become more human.
Yes.
So it kind of gets to your exact point in terms of I'm in and out of social media and I'm not, the puffery of it. Sit down and have coffee with someone, make a real human connection. What I heard from leaders too is they need to kind of communicate or make that human connection with all the folks within their organization. So to your point, it's not a digital front, it's a human touch front.
Mm.
And that's becoming one of the, contrasts, I would say, in interviewing leaders. So I almost in your asking the question, I can see, even as we're doing now, this is a complete human connection, right? And we're talking about great ideas and things, and it's not puffery.
No, it's not. And I think that we've got to lose that. And I think that that is a form of leadership that has just got to dissolve because for so long we've, I'm sure you have in some of the startups you've been in, and even also the Fortune 5 companies. There's just this mask that you put on. It's like when you're a famous pop star or a famous musician, right? You get up on stage but then behind the closed doors, you're a very different person. And I think there's this real need and ability for this new form of leadership to be more soulful, to be more conscious, to be more high performing, but doing it in a way that's more sustainable and the ability of what you see on the outside is me, on the inside, it's the inside out style of form of leadership, right? But yet
Right.
we've still got this, I guess, a bit of a disconnect between like the social and everything I was talking about and you're talking about versus like this ability just to have this human connection conversation here where we're just connecting and there's no judgment and there's just this ability for you to share your vulnerabilities, me to share my vulnerabilities and know that it's okay and that this is what how humans connect.
Right. Exactly. And, B, it reminds me of in one of my interviews, talking to, someone in the middle of the company, so to speak, and he said, I don't hear from the CEO any longer. I'm, not being communicated the vision. I used to be very close to that, and I'm not seeing that anymore. So I'm choosing to leave the company. But it gets to your exact point around, I would say leaders that have authenticity, that have integrity, that are communicating will capture the imagination of their people, as they should, right? And being authentic. And CEO yesterday told me he made a big hiring mistake of a senior leader. And he got in front of the company and said, I made a mistake. This was the wrong hire at the wrong time, and I need to do better. So that to me is owning up to,
Yeah.
who you are as a human, and you can make mistakes, and he's going to be loved for that. I can guarantee that.
Yeah, 100%. So you started Human Ignition 8 months ago, right?
Yeah.
You've decided you want to interview all these leaders. Like what was the is this part of the business and getting the rich insights to then build it into the business? And then also how many interviews are you planning to do? Like what kick-started going, right, I'm going to do all these leadership interviews and ask this one specific question?
Yeah, I love the question, and it evolved over time. So to your point, I didn't want to start a business with my hypothesis without knowing the current market problems.
Yeah.
So I started, interviewing leaders, and that rapidly turned into me writing a book. Because I think to your point, all of the knowledge that I'm learning is really important to leaders, and so it's yes, it's part of the business, and it's going to be part of a book, which I'm on chapter 3 now. And I'll give you an insight into the hypothesis and problem solution, so to speak. But the hypothesis was that, and I might say the word operating a system a lot, but
I love
we
it
all have
though.
it. We all have this internal operating system, and
100%.
as a leader, you need to know where you are in your own operating system before you're an effective leader. And I think of it simply as below the line or above the line. So below the line is fear, frustration, anger, all the things we would imagine. Above the line is curiosity and gratefulness and joy. So, and I believe if you're above the line, you're operating as a creative leader and not a reactive leader. So
Mm.
that's really important for leaders to understand. And then I could go through the rest, but there's team operating system. How do you operate as a team? Enterprise operating system. And I think lastly, world operating system. Are you doing good in the world? So that's kind of the vector or the hypothesis of, not only the company, but the book as well.
We've got so much in common, and because like I believe that, like I talk about it as like an interconnected ecosystem, right? In terms of or an interconnected system. And really, for me, it is that interconnection of the individual, the leader, the team, the business, and then I talk about society at large. And
Yep.
it starts with us first and foremost, like you're saying, like what's going on as our, internal operating system. But a team has a system, and then like it's like biology that scales, right? And then we have this living
Right.
and breathing business system as well. When they're disconnected, when they're operating from a reactive state, you're never going to be able to, or what I call shine your brightest, feel and perform at your best as a collective, which is ultimately like you're talking about. And I love that you're doing all these interviews because you're getting that first-hand, real-time, lived experience to be able to then inform, well, this is what I'm being told. This is it. Versus there's some great books out there, don't get me wrong, but the ability to be able to share some of these like leaders' experiences. That's what we want to hear. This is back to that authentic. We want to hear the realities of, well, this is actually what I'm facing.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And so tell me, in terms of you've got this book going on and then Human Ignition. So what how did you get to starting Human Ignition? What was the I guess the point where you were like, all right, I want to start a business. Like you've had so much experience in startups and everything else. Where how did you get to Human Ignition as a starting point?
So just so you know, I read 100 books a year. So I've
Whoa.
read most, and I could point you to my bookshelf over here, which is color coordinated.
Oh my
But
gosh. Are they all leadership books?
they're mainly business books, I would say. But that's, in all the leadership books that I've read one incredible one. It's called Leadership Circle, and they kind of give the dimensions of reactive and creative leadership. But in all of my, startups, but also Fortune companies, specifically UHG, I started a team called Fusion, and we would do things like team principles or radical candor
Yeah.
or extreme ownership. And all of a sudden, these became tools for us to operate, as a leadership team, but also as an overall team. And I every leadership book I read, I feel is very kind of fragmented in a way, and no one brings it together.
No.
So to get to your question, that was the whole, idea behind human ignition is let's wrap this all together so we can operate, you know, at a much higher level, as a leader or as a team, much like we just discussed. Because I think some of the foundational tools are not leaders don't have right now.
I think I could not agree with you more. I absolutely love this because it's about that whole being approach, isn't it? It's a whole
Yeah.
being approach to business. It's a whole being approach to a team. It's a whole being approach to a leader. Like I always think about leaders, and I'd love your thoughts on this. Is it's mind, body, and soul. It's how do you bring all of it together? It's the same with a team. It's the same with a business, and yet, like. When I was, in the previous business I was in, you had a HR department over here, you had a creative department here, like I come from a background in advertising and communications, but I used to look at all the different departments, even from a finance perspective. And I'm like, you could just see all the disconnections. It's just the way my brain thinks. And it sounds like yours is very similar in terms of, and I was always thinking, how is this not all interconnecting together? That was really what for me sparked my interest in there's got to be a way to interconnect this, but it seems so simple, but yet it's so complicated in trying to do that. But there's got to be there is a simple way to put it all back together to get
Yeah.
out of, like you're talking about, this below the line, this reactive state, because we are so reactive. Like, we're not thinking strategically, we're not coming to work feeling and performing at our best. We're exhausted. We've got this burnout going on. We've got this disengaged teams because they're not understanding what the vision is of the business or where it's going. And it looks so simple from the outside in to be able to go, well, you just need to put it all together. But there's just so much we need to unravel to then reshape it. Like, do
Right.
you know what I mean?
I do, and I'll give you a pretty good case example. I think we'll start to tie things together. So I, had a team of 15, the Fusion team. I built it up to 30 really rapidly. I would say less than a year. So that's a big shift of,
Yeah.
other people coming in. And at some point, I lost the ethos of this great team. And we needed to get the whole team together to say, what are our new operating principles as a team? What are we agreeing to? And that actually became a kind of a vision for the whole team that everyone bought into, not just Ed's vision for the team, but Susie and Mary and Joe type of thing. They contributed, but I think to your point, you need to understand where your team is at, what's going to congeal them, what's going to create that vision for them that they are a part of. I heard a lot from leaders, kind of the classic Simon Sinek, why, how, and what. So the why always needs to be articulated, but also re-articulated because sometimes and I call it the frozen middle. Sometimes it doesn't get passed and
Yeah.
through to everyone in the company, and everyone's kind of operating around the same strategy, and they agree to it, or they have, bits of disagreement, but decide to align to it. So it's getting to your exact point of everything being disconnected. How do we reconnect everything and then operate at our highest level and avoid burnout? To me is an outcome which you should never get to. And we see a lot of it today. So
Why do we see a lot of it? Like, I mean, I've had my own experience of burnout, and I agree with you. It's a system failure, if you ask me. Like, you think
yeah,
it's you, you're part of it, but I think it's a system failure as well because the system's failed you in a way in terms of like you should never get to burnout, but you do, and it's getting more and more prevalent. And I don't know about you, but I even see people and I look at them and I think you're on the verge. Like I've been there. I've seen you. Like you're almost combusting because you're so. Like I was coaching someone last night, and she just started the session. She was just like, and by the end of it, we only had a half an hour, but because she just couldn't even, she's like, I can't do this session. And I just kind of like went, okay, well, let's just talk for a second. And by the end of it, you could just see the change in her face and just this almost like We took the pressure off. But
Wow, that's amazing.
it's that sort of like talk to me about what like you just said, like we should never have to experience burnout, but we are, and it's crazier than ever. And it's been around for like years and years and years, but it just doesn't
Right.
feel like we're actually back to your above the line, below the line. Like we're not actually getting to the root cause of what is causing this burnout, and then how do we actually remove it versus just transactionally or reactively remove it and go, okay, let's like sorted, let's go now. Do you know what I mean?
I do actually, and when I think of when I think of anti-burnout, what does it take? And it takes flow in my mind, and
Yes.
big flow though, meaning are you architecting your day, um, you know, appropriately? And what that means is 45 minutes of work, 15 minutes of break, whether that's looking out a window or taking a walk. But if you keep in flow all day, it will not lead to burnout because, it's a chemical process in our brains, actually. So if you keep working for 6 to 8 hours straight, you're depleting those chemicals. And you're getting into that state of burnout. And it's cumulative as well. So, today's Monday, tomorrow's Tuesday. By Wednesday, you're exhausted because you've depleted, you haven't, done the personal care elements, that bath, taking a walk, getting on the bike, looking at an open vista, whatever it might be. But I think, and we talked about it a little bit earlier, the world we live in is so noise filled that we're
Yes.
not stepping away from the noise. And, you could even extend that further to say, within the quarter, are you taking, 4 days off? And it could be Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And that actually adds back to your humanity. And I don't think we're taking, enough time to get in flow, and that leads to burnout. So to your point, it's systemic.
Yeah, 100%. And I think there's that dark side of flow as well, like you were talking about before, just a second ago, in terms of if you are not taking those micro breaks or those little active pieces of recovery where you are stepping away and you are, and I have, this has happened to me before where I'm like so deep in the flow, but like 8 hours later, I'm like, whoa, I haven't even eaten, I haven't looked up, I've just
Mm,
been, that's a dark side. And that, accumulates, like you say, because you're just pushing, pushing, pushing. You think you're flowing, but you're actually not. And there's this ability to, how do you pull out of flow when you're at the point of your next like big creative endeavor or whatever, to be able to give yourself a bit of a break, to then come back and be even more flowy, if that makes sense, in terms of you access more insights, you access more creativity, more fresh perspective. But how we start our week, and it's funny you say that because I actually posted yesterday, I was like, you know what, I'm just talk about being authentic. My puppy, my dog, he's my chief energy officer.
I
I
love
called
that.
him on, I was yesterday, I was working away and I looked up at him and there he was, sprawled out on the couch. And he just looked at me as if to say, Mum, it's just Monday, just cruise into it. And it reminded me that so many leaders start their Monday, they've had a full weekend. They then from Monday, they're like, bang, I'm in back-to-back meetings. And it reminded me that if we set our weeks up, our Monday up, full of meetings, we're setting ourselves up for failure for the week because, like you say, by Wednesday, we're cooked, we're exhausted.
Right.
But actually, what we should be doing is easing our way into the working week, starting the week with that self-care. If you're feeling a bit tired on a Monday morning, don't start your morning your first thing with meetings. Do something that's going to make you fill your cup back up. Do you know what I mean?
I do. And, I consciously book time in my calendar for deep work. And the deep work is exactly as you're saying, it's flow. And then, even talking about leaders, one of the things that I discovered is that they're focusing too much on horizon one, and it's because they're trying to meet their quarterly numbers. So you're almost in this endless loop. If you're only investing in horizon one, and not horizon two and three, you actually lose your strategic advantage.
Yeah.
So not only as a leader, you're entering Monday with back-to-back meetings, you're not getting at strategy, which even ties back to all the things that we're talking about, your why and the vision. So you're breaking down as a leader essentially and serving the short run and not serving the long run. And it just leads to all the things that we talked about. So it's not even dark flow, it's no flow.
Yeah, it's so
Right?
true. Yeah, it's so true. And you really notice it when there's no flow because you're just like you're efforting.
Right.
It's like you're pushing basically shit uphill and you keep
Right.
pushing it and you keep pushing it, but it's not moving. And you're like, why is this not moving? And it's only when you actually step away, you look, I call it you look up versus you down like this to
Yeah.
get back to strategically, okay, hang on a sec. What is my why? Where are we going? What is the point? Do we need to what do we need to like look at? What do we need to shape or reshape to continue to take us beyond that horizon one?
Right.
Like it's so important what you're talking about here. Have you specifically asked leadership questions around how people are accessing flow state? Like, are they aware of what flow is? Like, what are you is there any sort of questions you're asking around that when you're posing this question, the one question to them around the challenge?
Yeah, so I'd say one of the leaders that I spoke with, this was one of the earlier interviews that, and it gets to your point around flow, but she talked about rising in the organization. And as she rose, she became more lonely. She had less of a support system than she ever had, and she didn't have any guidance. So what I asked her, what did you do about that? And she said, I created my own board of advisors. So I have this group of friends that I meet with, and they really help me through, the issues that I'm going through. And I think to get to your point, one of the concepts that came out of it was leadership 360. So the question is, as a leader, you or I even, how are you surrounding yourself for support and success? So part of it is, yes, I have a board of advisors, but I have an internal team that's around me that's helping me through, different challenges. And I can guarantee you, because I was a senior leader in a Fortune 5 company, leaders don't think this way. So what's your support system? Right? And what gets you into that support system will get you into flow and avoid burnout.
Yeah, I had like, when I had like in my previous role and I had, 150 staff, a leadership team of eight. I had a support system in from a leadership perspective, but also outside of like, and it was, I had a doctor, I had a coach, like I had that sort of a support system, right? I had friends, I had family, but my doctor was making sure that I was preventative, like, in terms of keeping healthy, not going to see him just when I was sick, but, that regular like check in from a body mind perspective. Then I had a coach ensuring that, it was a whole being approach. And I think it's really important to have those sorts of supports around you as well. Like I think the more we can look at leadership in terms of you've got your people internally, but how are you looking at your system, your support system from that whole being? So your health, ensuring that you're keeping true to the vision and the mission. It's all of it. It's all encompassing, right? And I think you're right. I think there's a lot of leaders out there that don't even know where to start with this sort of. I think they have to do it all themselves. They have to carry it all. They have to wear it all on their back, on their shoulders, versus actually, no, I need the support around me.
Yeah, I love all of your commentary, and you're right. We're very like-minded because at one point I had done full Ironman competitions, super competitive, trying to get faster and faster and faster. And then at one point I said, why am I doing this? And I, looked at Ironmans as my outer game. And then I said to myself, I need to work on my inner game. So I hired a series of meditation coaches to actually almost like calm the noise, in me. And then, at one point when I was about 4 years ago, I was on three medications, heart medications. And I'm like, I'm relatively young. And I asked my doctor, how do I get off these medications? And he said, it's going to be too hard for you. And I said, you don't know me very well. So it's getting to your point. I hired a functional medicine doctor, and he's
Yeah,
like,
that's
this
what
is
I've got.
possible.
Yeah.
Change your diet. I was pretty good at exercising, but I think diet was the biggest change for me. So now I'm off all medicines. But to your point, it's like who is surrounding you as a leader to keep you in your kind of fittest form, mind, body, and spirit. I don't think leaders think that way, but it's really important.
No, they don't think that way, Ed. And I think that's for me, that's one of the things that keeps me awake at night. And I love your thoughts on this actually, because this is the new form of leadership. This is what is going to be sustainable, regenerative. It's what the new world order needs when we talk about this noise, because this noise is not going away. It's getting more and more louder and louder and louder, and we're almost getting sucked into the vortex more and more. Like even from an AI perspective, I've been having quite a few chats recently where it's like even when I'm using AI for all the productivity and efficiency I'm using it for, I'm kind of feeling like exhausted from it because it's like it's doing so much. It's giving me more chat like opportunity to do the creativity and the strategy stuff. But it's also like this constant adding, 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 and then you're thinking, oh, I could do this and I can do this. Like that's not going away. So, but how do we, I guess my question is, how do we get people or leaders to start seeing that this is required if you want to sustain yourself as a leader into the future? Because I just feel like there's almost like a little bit of a, if I pause or if I slow down, I'm not going to hit my numbers, or I'm not going to do this, or I might lose my job, or this. There's almost like a fear of, but yet there's this desperation as well to reshape their leadership because it's not working for them. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I do, and there's a great kind of architecture that I learned recently, which is, if we're over here and this is the left-hand side, it's the comfort zone, which is, blanket, fire, hot cocoa, all the things. And then the next zone is the fear zone. And fear is always trying to push you back to the comfort zone. And, then there's the other zone, which is the learning zone. So if you can anchor in the learning zone, then, you avoid the fear part. And then the last zone is the performance zone. So it's all the way from, clearly comfort to performance. But as part of performance, I think the learning part is what does it take to be an effective leader? And it's understanding that, flow is important. It's understanding that your functional health is really important and that you're taking care of yourself. And then what are the kind of structures you're putting in place for your company to be healthy as well and other leaders around you? So I almost think of it as a stack in a way. To your point, we're facing the noise, more emerging technology. One of the things I heard is we need to become more human. When I talked about the stack, I mean that to me is more human, that you're taking care of yourself as a leader.
yeah, it's so true. It's so true. I've got a couple of quick questions for you before I let you get to finishing, no doubt, powering down for your day. It's a Monday, so you're probably ready to power on down. What is next for Human Ignition? You're actually writing the book, you're doing all this leadership. What's your big focus for Human Ignition, given it's only 8 months young? The baby.
Yeah, really taking all of the problems even that we just talked about, right? The noise that leaders are facing, the emerging technology that's driving even more speed, that is creating kind of untenable situations for leaders to be in, much like we just talked about. So creating the solutions or antidotes to each one of those. That's really the next big, revolution of the flywheel, so to speak, is building solutions for leaders to operate in flow, much like we just talked about.
Love that. I love that so much. And what would be one piece of, well, what would be one piece of advice or a tip for, let's talk about this week because it's Monday for you. It's only Tuesday here. Coming back to like my big headline in my post yesterday was go with the flow, because it is all about that. What would be, what would be your tip with regards to the ability to access or get into flow for the duration of this week, ignoring that white noise, what would be, I don't know, 3 tips that you would suggest to any leader to be able to successfully flow through the week? What would that be?
I, yeah, I love it. So block your calendar out for deep work and thinking time. Do kind of institute this idea of uh, deep heads down work, but that 15-minute break, so 45, 15 or whatever works for you as a leader, because that's going to really help you harness the chemicals within. And then the last thing I would say is create deep connections with your loved ones at home, with folks that are around you during the workday. Deep connections gonna matter in this age that we're in. So those would be the 3 tips.
I love it. I love that so much. Ed, how do we find out more about you, your company, Human Ignition? When is this book? Have you got a goal of when you're going to have this book completed by? Have you got a working title of it so we can actually look out for it? Like I'm probably putting a bit of pressure on asking a few questions. Yeah.
No, absolutely. So can find me on LinkedIn certainly, or humanignition.com is very easy. And then your last question, shooting for March for the book. We'll see how that goes. But my first book took 3 years. This one's going to take less than a year, so we'll see.
Yeah, awesome. That's such a great. Yeah, I look forward to reading this book, and I've made a note to read the leadership circle. I love that. I love what you're doing with Human Ignition. It sounds very much like what Bee Formless is doing in terms of, really reshaping that life, leadership, and business because if they're all three encompassing, right? And it is all around how do you access that flow state? How do you shine your I call it shining your brightest by feeling and performing your best. The old world of hustle and climbing that corporate ladder like we've always been told to do so. It isn't sustainable. So I'm looking out and we're going to be watching Human Ignition and who knows, we might end up collaborating on something one day based on all well, maybe we'll share insights with all
I
the
know.
insights I've got and you as well. It's amazing. So I love what you're doing. Keep trailblazing through. So thank you so much, Ed. It's been I've really enjoyed chatting to you today. I won't say this morning, but it is my morning. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks, B. It's been a pleasure. Can't wait to collaborate with you.
Yeah, take care. Thank you.